Let's go! Quick LSU versus Auburn preview. We've talked so much this week about both TJ Finley and Bo Nix. You can see those videos down below, our deep film studies on both of those quarterbacks. But obviously, today I'm going to give you a prediction if LSU is going to prevent Auburn from beating them in Tiger Stadium. This has not happened. Auburn has not won in Tiger Stadium since the late 90s, and obviously in the background you're watching a play, Max Johnson's first series of the Auburn game, and he gets sacked here or brought down for a loss on 3rd and 6. So I want to focus a little more at the beginning of this on Max Johnson, because Max Johnson has been playing better football in recent weeks. LSU has done a better job calling plays for Max Johnson, and let's be honest, the biggest difference from Max Johnson at the beginning of the year to where he is right now is the emergence of guys like Jack Bech, Deion Smith, and in particular this last game, Brian Thomas Jr. But as you saw on this play, Auburn's pass rush and blitz packages can be very difficult to stop. And here's the thing, there is a wild card in this situation. Auburn no longer has Kevin Steele, who for 2 seasons in a row really slowed down LSU. And now it is Derek Mason, who in his first year as a defensive coordinator is not as good as Kevin Steele yet. So where the mistake actually happened was Ed Ingram, and the irony of this play is this will probably be your starting LSU offensive line going into next week. And one of the key players you have to watch out for is one of their great linebackers, Owen Papo, wearing that number 0 jersey. And this is basically what we were talking about last week. If you're an offensive guard, you always want to make sure those A-gaps are covered. Ed Ingram helped on this double team. This linebacker came on a delayed blitz. Once again, this is a really difficult block to pick up, but you have to be able to pick it up. Ed Ingram was too late, and then this A-gap pressure was coming right down the barrel. And the funny thing about it is if we would have picked up that A-gap pressure, we would have hit Eric Gilbert on an out. Max struggles with these kind of throws, but if he delivered a good ball, Eric Gilbert would have gotten the first down. And once again, you could say, well, that was last year's team, but this is the same offensive line with the same quarterback, and Owen Papo, if I'm not mistaken, is still with Auburn, and he is still a beast. So that's the first thing. Will LSU's blitz pickup be better? Because last week against Mississippi State, it was okay at times, but mostly it wasn't great. Now on to the second key of the game, and before we get into a quick little defensive study, let's hear from the man himself, Ed Orgeron.
But we're going to have to tackle. We're going to have to cover those guys man-to-man. There's going to be a lot of singled up on their receivers. We're going to have to cover them. We have to pass rush when we get a chance, but the object of the game is to be able to stop the run and tackle.
There you go, Coach O. And you see right here, Tank Bigsby, Auburn's great set of running backs, is led by number 4. This is him breaking contained versus Ali Gay. So what does this mean exactly? Well, we're about to actually break down this exact play from this image. But I do want to share something from what Ed Orgeron just said. He's right. Auburn is going to run the football, and that's what they feel more comfortable doing. Auburn is so much better running the football than they are throwing the football, which actually statistically is rare. EPA per play, this is via CFP numbers. Auburn is better, and just by a basic statistic, Auburn averages more yards per rush than they do yards per pass attempt, which is really hard to do, and it is extremely rare. So, yes, we do want Bo Nix and TJ Finley to have to beat us with their arms, because I don't think either one of them are that good. But the question is, what is the best way to stop the run? And I'm not sure if LSU going back to the 4-man front is actually the better thing to do. Or what is it if they do the 4-man front? What is something that they shouldn't do versus Auburn? Are they going to quote-unquote stack the box? Now, I've been talking about stacking the box with other people that I respect, and simply put, when LSU has stacked the box, they have gotten gashed. And what you're seeing here is Auburn is lined up in a 2 tight end formation. Okay, now you're looking at a graphic here from SEC StatCat. Auburn, even though they have a brand new coaching staff, new OC and new head coach, They're still running a lot of two tight formations. And this is exactly what UCLA did versus LSU. And what they are trying to do is get LSU to stack the box. And not only are they doing that, they're running a lot of pre-snap motion, which is something Auburn, I think, is going to do a lot of because Mike Bobo, their offensive coordinator, was the offensive coordinator of South Carolina last year, and South Carolina also had a lot of success with pre-snap motion versus LSU. And here's the idea, okay? What a lot of coaches think they need to do to stop the run is stack the box. But that's not what you should do, because when you stack the box, all you have to do is break simple contain or just run through this first wave of defenders and you're gone. Or you're going for a large gain. And what happened here is because they knew we were in man coverage, we were running all across the field, and they get a 2-for-1. Not only does a contained defender stop the jet sweep motion, they're also getting Cordell Flott going after this guy, and all this guy had to do, Tank Bigsby, is beat Ali Gay's contained to the outside. They got a 2-for-1 on the outside here as well because we were playing man coverage, and they were off to the races. So I'm not sure if LSU should go back to the four-man front because Mississippi State, that defensive scheme worked. Now, albeit Mississippi State is a different team, a completely different team. They throw the ball. Running the football is not their identity, like what Auburn's identity is. But here's the thing. Just because that's the case doesn't mean that your four-man front is the best way to stop what Auburn is going to try to do. Once again, you see this, and this is what happens when you stack the box. You get all these guys caught up in the mush. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys at the line of scrimmage. So all Tank Bigsby has to do is beat this guy, and they're getting a 2-for-1 right here. I don't want to see LSU go back to the man-to-man coverage where in the pre-snap motion they have guys running back and forth because it's going to tire yourself out. And here's the irony of it. Because we had so many guys stacked up and Baskerville just ran into the mush, Bigsby would have had a hole to run through right here as well. Now, it wouldn't have been as clear of a hole. He made the right decision to bounce it, but he would have been able to get through there for a nice gain as well. Last week, LSU's run fits were just so much better versus Mississippi State. It's something else about the four-man front is, yes, you can get pressure with 4 guys, but especially against Bo Nix. TJ did show some mobility last week, but he's not as mobile as Bo Nix. Bo Nix ran for a career high versus LSU of 81 yards, and because we lost our pass rush lane integrity, he had a huge gain to run through for a first down, and because we're playing man coverage, once again, Ed Orgeron said in the press conference that we're going to try and line up man-to-man. It's going to open up rushing lanes for the mobile quarterbacks that LSU has coming up on the schedule, whereas in that 3-man front, once again, I don't think you could just rush 3, drop 8 like you did against Mississippi State, but it is harder to scramble versus a 3-man front compared to a 4-man front. So here's the scary thing is I don't know what defensive scheme LSU is going to run. I do know this, though. What they did last week worked. Despite playing 88 plays, which is a lot. I think that's the most LSU has ever played defensively in a non-overtime game. I might be wrong about that, but still, they only gave up 5.5 yards per play. And since they've moved to the 4-3, the post-Aranda era, in their other 11 Power 5 games, they have given up 7 yards per play or more in 9 of them. 9 of them, okay? So outside of last year versus Vanderbilt, a really bad team, and Texas A&M, a decent team, the 4-man front at LSU has been an unmitigated disaster. And I think UCLA and Auburn, they have a lot of similarities in what they have offensively, which is a decent quarterback with some mobility, an offensive line that loves to block, duo. I won't get into duo scheme, but they love to do that. And they have really good running backs. Auburn's running backs are probably the best set of running backs in the SEC. So, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know what scheme LSU's going to run. I don't know if it's going to work, whatever they're going to do. But I'm very skeptical of going back to the 4-man front and man-to-man coverage. I'm just not sure if that's going to work. But here's the thing. It could be like Texas A&M. LSU's defense could just come out and dominate against Auburn. They very well could. It is a favorable matchup on paper for LSU, but we'll see. Now, let's get into some special teams. But once again, we'll see. Now, as far as special teams is concerned, Carlson, their field goal kicker, is really good. He did miss a clutch one last week, but he is obviously a really good field goal kicker. But we'll see what LSU can get out of Trey Palmer in the return game. Now, last week we broke down Trey Palmer's very underrated punt return. He did not have good blocking, and he made a lot out of nothing. So can LSU get a big return from Trey Palmer? We'll see, because last year, this guy just was a great kick returner in general, but he almost took this one back to the house, and it was Carlson, the kicker, who actually ended up making the play. And Trey Palmer actually got really good blocking on this play. He was able to seam him, and then this was just a really good tackle in the open field by the kicker, okay? So if Trey Palmer makes this guy miss, he's taking it to the house. And here's the thing, Auburn, their special teams coverage units this year, we'll see. So that's my special teams play. Can Trey Palmer make another huge kickoff or punt return in this game? So obviously key players, we normally don't like to include the quarterbacks. So, but I mean, come on, it's Bo Nix or TJ Finley. I don't know who's actually going to start. Max Johnson on the other end. Let's give you a few other key players. The first, I'm going to go with Ty Davis-Price. And look, last week he was LSU's best running back. It wasn't always pretty, but the bottom line is TDP played his best game in quite some time last week. Probably his best game since the Arkansas game from last year. And look, is TDP the next great thing? Probably not. I understand that there's a lot of people that want Corey Kiner to be the guy, but TDP in pass protection is their best option. And one more thing, I'm showing you another stat here from our buddy SEC StatCat. LSU's RPO game has been very effective, but only through the air. As you see with this stat, LSU running out of the RPO isn't really quite that effective. But LSU has, even though despite they have a bad running game, when they do RPOs, the defenses up to this point have still sold out to stop the run. So kind of like what we were talking about a minute ago with LSU's defense, well, the opposing defenses are still selling out to stop TDP on RPOs and play action, and LSU is just killing every defense when they do that because it gives big matchups to Kayshon Boutte to the outside, which was the key source of LSU's 65-yard touchdown last week. And you go back to Devonta Lee, that was also an RPO on basically the same play. So, yeah, will Auburn's safeties actually come down to help stop the run? If they do, LSU should love what they have. But if they don't, LSU's going to need TDP to make them pay, or just any running back. Alrighty, it's money time, baby. Predictions. I'm going to need your predictions, okay? I'm looking at you right now. And I know we were so excited to see Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, but it was DJ Chark who got hurt last night. And as many of you know, I'm a big DJ Chark fan. Shout out to you, Alexandria. That really, really, really stung. But you can't tell the history of LSU and Auburn without the great DJ Chark and his amazing return yards. And hopefully we get the same thing from Trey Palmer, because that was a crazy comeback back in 2017. And then we had the kick in 2018. Then we had the in 2019, but we were still able to get it done. And then we won't talk about 2020. But you guys have been looking at the weather. It looks as if it's going to be kind of a rainy day in Tiger Stadium. But, of course, it never rains in Tiger Stadium. But it is important to point out that it could get a little damp. Now, the point spread is floated LSU minus 3.5, somewhere around there. And before I give you this prediction, let me give you my honest thoughts about Auburn. They have some guys on defense that will play on Sundays. Papo, Smoke Monday. They have some really good players there. And Tank Bigsby is a really good running back. But I think the overall Auburn coaching staff and roster is very mediocre. And I think right now in the SEC West, they have by far the worst quarterback situation. And they're going to be on the road with no identity. They just fired a coach. And look, we tend to do this a lot. We focus in just on all the flaws that we have at LSU, and there's quite a few of them. But I am not in love with anything Auburn's doing. And I know you've been looking at some of Auburn's stats. Well, those stats are inflated because in the first 2 weeks in their run of wins against FCS and lower FBS teams, Akron and whoever else that was, they killed them like 60-0 in both those games. Auburn recently has not been playing well. They didn't play well versus Penn State. Hostile environment, I get it, but last week they just weren't good against Georgia State, and they were definitely not good at the most important position, which is quarterback. And I know a lot of people made a lot of what TJ Finley did against Georgia State to be pretty miraculous, but goodness, he missed a bunch of very critical throws to even get to that point. So I'm not in love with Auburn's quarterback situation, and I understand Max Johnson is no Joe Burrow, but he's better. And because of that, I'm just not in love with Auburn's team right now. I felt that way before the season. I even feel stronger about that now. And understand, LSU is far from a perfect team. And come on, Joey B will be at the game, or at least I think he will be. I kind of right here. Once again, thanks to Jamar Simeon for this dope painting right here. Look, so this is Marlon Favorite with Joe Burrow. Obviously, Joe played the Thursday night game. Once again, I hate that DJ Chark got hurt, but Joe and Jamar and Caleb Von Chason, all a part of the 2019 LSU team. None of those three guys played last year, so and I don't think any of those three guys were able to go to a game last week or last year. So I would really hope that all three of them would be there. Obviously, most notably, Joe Burrow. So because Joe's going to be there, I'm not only going to pick LSU to win, they're also going to cover, baby. Your final score will be 31-21. Now, once again, this photo is not confirmation if Joe Burrow is going to be there, and Marlon Favorite, once again, might be in Ohio. I don't know, but come on. You know Joe's going to be there. Night game, are you kidding me? It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. And you better be there for the halftime and the post-game show. And we're doing salmon tonight. Let's go.